Hello everyone. Well, instead of sneaky sushi or YOLO, I am here to talk about an issue that has concerned me a bit and brought up a few questions. I'll be covering the news and facts in this video and hopefully sharing some maybe objective, maybe slightly biased, I don't know, commentary. And in another video, I'll share what this whole thing has prompted me to think about. Alright, so for the longest time, even when I was studying in NTU, I did not hear any significant news regarding the student union, apart from the whole bus operator changing thing. And they had like the surveys and stuff. But now after I graduated, some rather spicy, or shall I say enzymatic, news has popped up. Recently, the NTUSU had revealed the candidates and even had their elections. But a year ago, on 15th October, according to the victim, so this is from Soapbox, there was a drinking session where the victim was allegedly drunk, like she was already drunk, and she needed some water, but she asked this to the at that point of time, the presidential candidate, who is called Ethan here. I'll just refer to him as E because that's easier. So she asked E for this and he gave her alcohol instead of water, and she drank it without really knowing it wasn't water, which caused her to become more drunk. So this kept happening and she basically blacked out, and the next day she had no idea what had happened, and she was only told about the incident after some time. So on the day that he was giving her alcohol, he kept doing it until the outgoing president, Danraj, who was observing the whole situation, told him to stop in anger. So the victim is not alone in recounting the events, and there were two other committee members who had told Soapbox about this whole, they're like the witnesses to the event. So yeah, the reason why I'm still mentioning their names is because this has been covered on so many sources already that I'm pretty sure you all know the names already. But yeah, the inference or my commentary on this is that regardless of E's intention behind doing this, the victim had trust in him in order to ask him for water instead of alcohol. And yet he betrayed that trust by giving her alcohol. So that in itself is a morally suspicious thing to be doing, because let's say if you're a student leader, the idea of being a student leader is that people put their trust in you to serve them, or to do things that are beneficial for the community that you're serving. But if he is going around betraying the trust of a fellow EXCO member to begin with for such a very straightforward thing as giving water to her, then how would we be able to reliably expect him to not betray the trust of the greater community? So yeah, it's even worse given that this is a pretty vulnerable moment, because it's not like you're doing a harmless prank where you're just maybe having an April Fool's Day prank, but this is actually like a vulnerable moment where she's not fully aware of what's going on, and then he tries to he kind of betrays her trust in that moment, which I feel is not a good thing. And with regards to the outgoing president, the fact that he did not immediately stop E from giving alcohol may be due to a presumed, he's just fooling around stance until it really became a bit too far. However, since this matter does involve alcohol, as I mentioned just now, as opposed to a harmless prank, and the victim is not fully aware of what's going on, the lack of urgency on his part may suggest that E is not the only one betraying trust here. But don't take my word for it. So what happened after that? Well, the two committee members were told not to reveal what had happened, but they eventually told the victim about it. And in a private investigation or meeting, Ethan was served a suspension of 5 weeks. So this involved a staff member from NTU, like the chief of staff. So there's an actual investigation, and NTU knows about this incident. So this means that Ethan was not supposed to be doing his EXCO duties for the next 5 weeks, but he was actually doing some stuff. He was doing like a project of sorts, and he was eventually just reinstated back into the EXCO after the 5 weeks. So my thoughts on this, well, The fact that Ethan was allowed to do whatever he wanted to do despite the suspension, coupled with the lack of urgency I mentioned before, could suggest that perhaps the previous president was angry not because Ethan was doing something wrong, but because it could have, it'd be like kind of a messy issue of having to suspend him and deal with the potential controversy. But once again, this is my speculation, don't berate him for it. It could also be just that he genuinely felt anger about the fact that E was doing something that isn't a good thing. And I don't really know how investigations go in NTU, but I'm a bit confused as to why there is no follow-up. Maybe if there's any follow-up or not. But of course, it's kind of hard to monitor what university students are doing because we are supposed to be adults and we are supposed to be able to make the right decisions ourselves. But let's say if the point of contact is through the outgoing president or even directly to E, then it's a bit easy for NTU to just lie to them and say that E wasn't doing anything during his suspension. But if they are more persistent or they ask more EXCO members, it might be possible that E could have been caught doing the fact that he was doing stuff during the suspension earlier itself. Yeah, this issue was kept relatively under the rug by NTUSU until recently, before the elections. So the victim has continued to bring up protestations against letting E run in the election, but was ignored by NTUSU. And now on September 14, the issue was mentioned on Reddit. So yeah, Reddit is the place of heroes. Okay, so yeah, this is the post that was on Reddit, and the Redditor has also mentioned that this is not E's first rodeo in terms of betraying people's trust. And this has sparked a flurry of reactions and comments on both Instagram and Reddit. And of course, NTU and SU apparently tried to quell the Instagram comments, but I don't use Instagram, so I can check it for myself. And eventually, the student union released a message in Instagram. And, the message, when I read it I think I saw the picture in Reddit somewhere, it felt very dry and just a standard sort of message that you would expect them to send. And it came off as insensitive and an attempt to cover up the whole thing, as per Redditors. The funny thing is, NTU has been quite quiet over the whole thing, so I'm not really sure how this goes. So then after many memes and calls for action popped up on Reddit, so the most prominent meme being a comparison of E's name to saying Ethan Onglai, because, pineapples, and a call for action to attend the AGM and demand answers from NTUSU. Well, I guess the humble pineapple has now been associated with elections in one way or another, and I thought I could claim it for a Asian identity. Oh well, why you gotta do pineapples like this? But yeah, NTUSU then proceeded to have their elections in which E was not elected. As a backup, there were two candidates who ran for the position, and the first one who ran, Annabelle, was immediately elected. However, this has also brought up backlash in Reddit since Annabelle is E's good friend and the one in charge of the communication from SU, aka the Instagram message that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, this is even more information from Soapbox, so this is what I saw in the Soapbox article. And of course, this brought up even more memes. Of course, I enjoy the memes. But on a more serious note, what this means is that due to the nature of NTUSU elections, that it is an internal election, the selection of the next leadership is pretty much dependent on the previous leadership. Now, as we saw earlier, I'm not sure how much I can trust Danraj and his fellow NTUSU people when they are busy trying to shove this issue under the rug and are still fine with E doing things during his suspension. But yeah, that's an issue to discuss in another video. As for the issue of E running for president, I would personally be okay with it if he had properly taken his suspension seriously and not done anything during it, and taken the time to reflect on his actions and apologize properly to the victim and understood that what he did was actually wrong. So if let's say he never does this thing again, then I would be okay with it. But I'm pretty sure none of that happened. I mean, even if he does apologize, how genuine is it? We wouldn't know. And honestly, I cannot really trust him to not betray other people's trust or the community's trust at this point, because he has literally betrayed his EXCO members' trust in terms of giving water. And so far, he has even betrayed the NTU, like, the whole idea of following his suspension. So he betrayed the NTU staff's trust in a sense. And now, well, what greater trust is he going to break? Well, at least he didn't get elected. That was the least they could do. So subsequently, with all the new backlash, came further calls from Reddit to attend the AGM in large numbers. This may have prompted NTUSU to have a night meeting which went until 4 a.m. to decide to, well, postpone the AGM. Some people wonder how this meeting got dragged so much and wonder if they were actually having a meeting or another drinking session. I, for one, actually believe that this was a meeting. The fact that they did it in the night may have furthered the fact that it was dragged out because, first of all, they're already in a hot, sticky mess, and a lot of discussion is required to supposedly get out of this quicksand. And two, have you had a meeting at night? Somehow everyone is already brain dead at night, and you won't be able to think quickly or coherently at that point of time, and it just keeps getting worse the longer it goes. And three, meetings are just inefficient to begin with. I know from experience. But of course, I don't know what actually happened in the meeting. Perhaps they were just cooking up some dastardly plan to sweep that whole hot, sticky mess under the rug again and stick it for real. So for now, we wait. In the meantime, E has his own little statement that he gave during the rally, where he says the victim wanted drinks and it was someone else who told him to give her water. And also, he wouldn't like as much attention to the issue that it is receiving right now. He also claimed that the needful investigations have already established what needs to be established and given the necessary punishment. And regardless of communication from NTUSU, there'll still be at least some of us who are not appeased. So yeah, I mean, this once again just feels like one of those trying to save your PR kind of feeling in the sense. And to be fair, there really is not much that he can say at this point. From NTU's point of view, what can you really say if you're looking at the event in isolation? And in fact, if the event is literally the only thing that happened, it will be fine. The problem is, though, this highlights a bigger issue with NTUSU that is not just limited to E. Aside from the issue with E, there are now allegations of NTU trying to disregard and then later steal the idea of the purple loop from the bus contractor or the CGG people they were working with, as well as some issues between the financial aid friends and actual NTU, where NTU is saying, oh, you can only talk to NTUSU, and that's not gonna work. So yeah. And that means that I guess supposedly even NTU has questions to answer, which means it's just like a Venn diagram of chaos from E to the main comm to NTUSU in general to NTU itself. Yeah, so to end off, I think we should all take a moment to read through this article by Rise Media, thanks to whoever shared this on Reddit. And I think the article is a lot more sensible than the Straits Times or Today or Mothership articles that we've seen. So the Rise Media article highlights a few points, such as the fact that the SU is nowadays distant from the student population, and any outreach they do is ultimately futile. And there's a lack of accountability in the SU due to this, especially with regards to elections. You've seen that they do internal elections. And what once used to be a politically charged for the students' organization is now just a puppy willing to catch the ball that the university throws and then enjoy the treats that it gets for itself. I would like to talk more about that in a separate video based on my experiences with being a student leader, but not really in the SU, and based on whatever insight that I can get from following this whole situation. With that, to those who are still students in NTU, I hope you stay calm and yet alert about what's going on. Like, don't become like too rash and then storm the AGM and start throwing pineapples at them. Do things in a calm and collected way and in a legal way. We for sure don't want to just forget what happened, but at the same time, we shouldn't conflate the issue such that our pleas are regarded as foul cry and then ignored. And yeah, that's about it. I hope this has been a meaningful summary of what has happened so far, and all the sources can be found in the description box below. And with that, I would like to say thank you and bye.